So, how is everyone? I hope you're all well on this fabulous Friday. That's it, this Friday. And this is video 1 of 2. So at the moment, I'm not even getting into this. Today there will be 2 videos, and you know the drill. So, Mr. Kohberger, they have come out with his with a response to the request for an alibi. And I think this is going to split the room. I think that it's highly likely that some people who perhaps were open to Bryan Kohberger being innocent may now jump ship, as they will kind of be disappointed in the alibi. I think that there will be a lot of content coming out now that will say Bryan Kohberger is screwed, or words to that effect, because of this alibi response. And what was the alibi response, I hear you say, for those of you who have not heard it or seen it? So he was out driving at night. That's it. He was out driving. Now look, we're going to get into this a little bit deeper because there is more to this than meets the eye, I believe. So look, what they're basically saying, there has been obviously a motion to compel, saying that if you have an alibi, you must give us that alibi. And this is basically the prosecution turning around and saying, look, we're not going to allow you a trial by ambush. We've spoken about trial by ambush, haven't we? And we've said perhaps the prosecution were contemplating a trial by ambush by holding specific things in and going with it at the court, so to give the defence no time to prepare for what they were going to put in front of them. And I think that this is what the prosecution were doing, this motion to compel an alibi was all about. It was to stop getting to court and then the defence turning around and saying, look, you've gone through all this, but our client was actually there with that person and there's our proof. So this is the prosecution trying to avoid that situation. So the defence have come forward and saying, look, this isn't us trying to go with a trial by ambush. We have simply, the only thing that we can say our client was doing on that particular night was that he was driving. He had he'd been doing night drives for some time. He was one for doing it. He would do it alone, and he would not go to any specific place per se. He would just drive around. And, we have touched on previously, there is a difference between not being somewhere and doing something and being able to prove that. There's having an alibi, but an alibi has to be corroborated. You have to be able to say, look, I was with Mark and we was at the pub and this is the proof of that. There is camera evidence, there is witnesses, etc., etc. And it would appear that what the defence are saying is, look, we don't have that. All we can say is that our client was actually out driving, which he had this is what he did. This was just something that he would do. But it goes deeper. It does go deeper, because the defence are still turning around and saying, look, you chose to choose this method of trial. You chose to do away with a preliminary hearing and go to a grand jury, which removed our ability as a defence team to call specific witnesses, to cross-examine who you were going to bring forward, Bethany Funk, for instance. So we're in this position that we're in. We're in it. That's it. So we either have to wait till trial now, and the innocence of our client will be proven through the cross-examination of witnesses, expert witnesses, and we are busy in the background building our own investigation. We're talking to expert witnesses. I'm wondering whether Ann Taylor and her team have indeed got some form of report, maybe a Burla report even, Who knows? Who knows? We've touched on burglar report. I know some people feel that the car perhaps doesn't have a burglar report, but look, his car likely has some form of data that it can present that could either corroborate or, well, corroborate one of the side's story. It's quite a late car, and his car is listed on Burla's website as a car that can produce a report to at least show some form of GPS data. But anyway, I digress. So look, is this a shock? Is this information regarding his a real lack of alibi a shock? I don't think it is a shock. I think that we know that Bryan being in the position that he's in meant that there'd been a discussion earlier. I touched on this just the other day, that it's very likely that in that initial 15-minute conversation that he had, where they likely said, can you prove where you were at this time on this night? And he said, no, I can't. I was on my own. It's very likely that he probably told them he was driving around. And that's why they changed the information about the car. He basically gave them the heads up that he was out and he was a perfect candidate to be brought into the fray. Now, Bryan has offered an ex parte hearing to say that, look, I will happily come to court and have a discussion about what's going on, but I don't want the prosecution there. I will just address the court and the secrecy of the court and between ourselves, the defence, and the court, the judge. So something's going on here. And I think that the defence team are pushing hard in the paint that Bryan Kohberger has been framed. And I think that what they're alluding to is the fact that it will have to be the questions and cross-examination of the eyewitnesses, this like Dylan Mortensen and Bethany Funk, to bring to light things that should not have happened in this case. If they were coerced into giving statements. That's my thought. Now, do I think Bryan Kohberger is innocent? Do I think he's guilty? I still think we have to firmly hold on to due process. And I think that, Bryan Kohberger didn't turn around and say, I was in bed asleep. I was in bed. I can't prove. He did say he was out driving, and we have a white Hyundai Elantra driving around, or we have a white sedan driving around. So it's highly likely that it could well have been Bryan Kohberger, and it could be a situation of he was in the wrong place at the wrong time. And furthermore, we still cannot, and only the complete, how can I say, this could have been a setup. It could have. I'm not saying it was a setup. I'm not saying it is. I'm saying that if Bryan Kohberger was pulled in and he told them he could not prove where he was, he didn't have an alibi, and he was driving around this place at this time on this night, he's a perfect candidate. He's an absolute perfect candidate. But he could equally just be a complete and utter psycho. But look, I'm not going to be jumping ship. I'm not going to be one of these people that hears this information and decides that's it. He's got no alibi, he's done, this is over. There just seems to be something else going on here. Still feel that the defence are being open, they're having a discussion, and I don't think we've been offered any surprises. We knew he did not have some mind-blowing alibi and it was going to come out and it was going to be a case of, oh, that's where he was, oh, well, that's it then. And for those of you who are consistently saying, well, if he's innocent, why wouldn't he just be shouting and screaming from the rooftops? It doesn't work that way. The ball is rolling, he's caught up in this net, and he needs to go through the process. What we have to hope is that process is fair and just, and at the end of it, we have an outcome that we are all confident with, and the right person has been got hold of. But I still feel there are some curveballs to be had, and I feel that what they're trying to push, again, the defence is that, look, it weren't our client, we can't prove it, we can't say he was doing anything else, he was driving around, but I do have a feeling that us, the defence, through cross-examination, we'll be able to obtain enough information paired with what we find in the background here to prove that this was not our client. And that's it. Let me know down below what you think. Are you jumping ship? Have you decided that this is it? Bryan is indeed guilty and his alibi sucked arse. Let me know down below, and I'll catch you all in the next one.